This call is being recorded.
Okay, with that confirmation, I say welcome, shalom, welcome to the prophetical revelation, the prophetical revelation of the true Sabbath day of our observance that of all Hebrew Israelites. That means this prophetical revelation of time and the Sabbath day was stored in the celestial soul of the one celestial being of whom the Son of the universe has symbolized the customs and the cosmos of the heavens, who is the very same one that was promised to return to the surface of this planet and restore the true time and its Sabbath day. This means the one celestial being who is being responsible for sealing up a pair of balances in his hand. That is who that would be. That was promised to come. Again, I say it would be the one responsible for sealing up a pair of balances in his yod. Yod, that's Yod Dalet in Hebrew, from right to left. Yod Dalet in Hebrew, which is in its Hebraic spelling, spelled from right to left again, is Yod Dalet. This Hebrew word Yod Dalet, that is spelled from right to left. It also spells in the English's word from left to right, D-A-Y. D-A-Y. And it is found in Strong's Concordance under reference H3027. So with that said, and as I mentioned in Strong's Concordance, at this time I'm going to ask you if you're going to join in with this testimony as you follow it. You're going to need your King James Version Holy Bible. You're going to need your Strong's Concordance, if you have one, by James Strong's. And most importantly, you're going to need something to write with. So find a writing utensil and a tablet or some type of paper to write on and take notes. So with that said, again, the word Yod in Hebrew, spelled from right to left, Yod Dalet, that's found in your concordance under reference Strong's H3027. It also spells the word day in English from left to right, D-A-Y. And that has since, during the history of this world, of England, has now been translated into their English's word today that's known today as hand. Hand, H-A-N-D, hand. Now, this is the very same hand, H-A-N-D, or Yod Dalet in Hebrew, which is also, again, D-A-Y, day, D-A-Y in English, spelled backward, of which these particular days, in plural, are also prophetical, and they are of time, that were given into the hands, given to his hand, a particular hand, H-A-N-D, just as it reads in Daniel chapter 7, verse 25. And you can make a note of that scripture. Daniel chapter 7, verse 25, which is the same hand. And furthermore, this hand, H-A-N-D, in English, is the very same hand, H-A-N-D, that smote the ram, R-A-M, ram in English, with the I missing. The I missing. So let that be the first word that you spell on your notes. That would be ram, R-A-M, with the I missing, as well as the EPH at the beginning. So when you spell the ram and add the I and the EPH in the beginning, for example, from left to right, EPH RAIM with the I added. And that spells the Hebrew name in translation in English known as Ephraim. 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 Now, that I that's missing and that was removed was removed with extreme color. For that reason, color. That's CHOLER. CHOLER in English. Color. CHOLER. And this word color means to show bitterness. Bitterness. So in other words, Ephraim and the I that's missing from Ephraim had done an evil thing that caused bitterness in sight of all of Israel a few thousand years ago. Ephraim being, of course, one of the sons of Joseph, or Yosef, son of Yaakov. And that bitterness you can find according to Strong's reference H 4843, H 4843. And furthermore, this hand, HAND, is the very same hand that was also seen with fingers attached to this hand, who wrote in the same hour that came forth with those 5 fingers of this man's hand, and wrote over against the candlestick upon the plaster of the wall of the king's palace. And the king of that land only saw part of the hand that wrote during that time, TIME. And that is according to Daniel chapter 5 and verse 5. You can look in your Bibles and you'll see that. Daniel chapter 5 and verse 5. Who was also promised the same one of this hand with the fingers attached to the hand, 5 fingers, is the very same one who was promised to return at the last day, D-A-Y, day, or days in plural with the S added. Now, this hand, H-A-N-D, is also in care of the 6,000 years that was allotted to Cain as a challenge to Cain to prove to the Almighty God of the Hebrews that he was qualified to rule of his own world, to be the ruler of his own world and to rule the planet, of which, of course, he failed. Here we are now in the year 6027 solar time. He failed. Now, this truth is confirmed in the King James Version Holy Bible's book called Genesis, that some may say Genesis, there is no J. So the correct pronunciation of the first book of the King James Version Holy Bible that begins with G for Gimel, is Genesis. That would be in Genesis chapter 4 and verse 7. And that reads, I'm going to quote it, that reads, "If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him." End quote. Keeping in mind, for the record, as I repeat, that this solar year is 6027. 6027. And the true Shabbat, or true Sabbath day, according to solar time, is now being observed from sundown Saturday till sundown Sunday. Now, that was merely the benediction of this intended revelation of time. And now, as we get started for this testimony, in the form of its revelation, let me suggest to you, as you grab hold to your writing utensil now and something to write with and take notes, that you're going to need it to follow this testimony. Even as you watch the recording, you may want to pause it and research what's about to be said and shared, and you confirm these facts and this truth for yourself. That's why you should take notes. Furthermore, this revelation is going to require you to do a lot of writing. You're going to do a lot of writing. With that said, now, to wit, W-I-T, wit. The Celestial Lodge of Miami, right here in Miami of Florida, the Central Lodge here is responsible and is hosting this particular revelation. And just for the record, today is known as in two different calendars, as a pair of balances, two different time tables. The first, of course, is solar time. And now it's sundown. I'm on the East Coast of the United States. We're on the East Coast of the United States. And it's a little after 7 o'clock in the p.m. So that's just about sundown, which makes this now going to the fourth day of the second month of our solar year, 6027. And according to the Gregorian calendar, the other time that's being controlled and ruled by the moon, lunar, then today is known on that calendar as April 11, 2024. That's for the record. Now, with that reminder and confirmation, this special count that we're about to reveal was originated by the voice of Mount Og, Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh, known as Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh in the Tetragrammaton. Reveal the name Yahweh. And this count that we're about to reveal commenced during this count of this special count, and its order that was ruled at the time by the Gregorian calendar's year that was recorded as, I quote, 1984. That's when this revelation began to be loosed, 1984. Now, during that year, 1984, that recording of subject was done so after March 11th, 1984, of which Mount Og, of course, means father in Hebrew, Aleph Beth, from right to left, Aleph Beth, father. Ma'ab was heard and declared, saying that the Sabbath day was being observed on a Sunday that year, Sunday, and that our solar days began at sundown. Keep in mind that I pointed out to you during the benediction a few moments ago that the English word hand, H-A-N-D, was taken from the Hebrew word yod, from right to left, Yod Dalet, spelled in English from left to right, Y-A-D. Now, Yod Dalet from right to left also created the English word, again, known as day, D-A-Y, from left to right. Just want to make that clear. And in plural, it turns into days, D-A-Y-S, days. Now, with that explained, when this subject of the true Sabbath day was subjected by Mount Og in 1984, and when it is to be kept in its proper order by rotation every year. The revelation of the pair of balances and a bag of deceitful weights, and or the revelation of the Gad and Ephraim was not revealed yet at that time. Why? Well, because it wasn't time yet. This means that the one to whom those prophetic cryptos were in possession of, which are all inanimate, they are all inanimate objects, was not or had not been resurrected by Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, or as some call him today in English, Yahweh ben Yahweh. Not yet. Hadn't been resurrected. Now you may be asking why. Well, because that year, everyone around him and with him in the temple of love, he reminded me of Florida, was still sleeping in the dust of the earth. The dust of the earth. And that's confirmed in Daniel chapter 12 and verse 2. Also put into deep sleep according to Isaiah chapter 29, verses 10, 11, and 12. Keeping in mind now that the year was 1984. For the record, again, the year was 1984. And in 1984, again, our Sabbath day was being observed from sundown Saturday to sundown Sunday. And then he said that the next year, the Sabbath day would be observed on Monday, 1985. And then 1986 on a Tuesday. And then in 1987 on a Wednesday. And so on to Thursday in 1988, and on to Friday in 1989, and then observed on Saturday, 1990, and then right back to Sunday, which from sundown Saturday, sundown Sunday, right back again, 1990, 1991, a continuous rotation. So let us play that recording. I want to see if we can find that recording. Let's play that recording for you that was apparently being held during, probably it was being held at a particular feast, the Feast of Passover. Probably the Feast of Passover and unleavened bread. But the voice that you're about to hear of the commentator who's responsible for, I guess, downloading this video and posting it on YouTube, says that in the beginning of this video, that this video recording features, I quote, the Feast of Tabernacles, end quote. That begins with the subject of Deuteronomy chapter 16 that features, and verse 1, it features the first month, Abib. So let's play that video recording for you as part of today's audience. See, today you are part of today's audience that's found today on YouTube. And speaking of today, remember that today is known as April 11, 2024 of their calendar. And again, the fourth day of the second month of our solar calendar, 6027. That way we won't be confused when this is being played on YouTube for you. So let's play about at least 7 to 8 minutes of that video recording so that you can know how we arrived to today and the year and the month to this day and to this date that just proclaimed to this planet on this video recording by way of hearing this truth for yourselves. And as a reminder, praise Jehovah. So did we have that?
Let's go to Deuteronomy 16. Try not to hold you too long tonight. I know you have something to know. How many of you come to be with me 8 days a night? Praise God. How many of you came here to see me? Praise God. But you don't mind if I entertain you for a little while in Yahweh's word. Now let's read up a little bit on Deuteronomy 16. Let's start at verse 1. Read. Now that's the only month that Yahweh named. The rest after that are numbered. He named the first month Abib. The other months are 2nd through 12, each with 30 days. Each of Yahweh's months have 30 days. All 12. At the end of 12, you add 5 days, and at the end of 5 days is Abib 1, forever. And then you will notice that when you follow the Gentile and the Jewish calendar, you will see that the Sabbath will fall on the preceding, not preceding, but the advanced day of the week. Each year, it will change days. This year, since Yahweh used the sun as the timepiece, the correct time with Yahweh is solar time. He made the sun to rule the day, and he told us that the day is from evening to evening. From sundown through sundown is a day. So the moon does not rule the night. The sun rules the day, and the day includes the darkness and the light. White people, being the devil and opposer of Yahweh, set up a lunar calendar, and that's what you're familiar with. Praise Yahweh. They changed the times and the laws. And I don't want to get off into that tonight, but I'm just giving you a very brief synoptic understanding. So while false Jews worship Saturday, we worship the seventh day. Yahweh blessed the seventh day, not Saturday. Nowhere in your Bible does it teach us to worship Saturday. But Yahweh said in Genesis, worship the seventh day. It's holy. Genesis 2:2. Let's just take a peek. I'm not going to prove solar calendar tonight. One day I'll do that when I'm feeling real good. The reason I'm not doing it now is because this keeps all false teachers and everybody shut up. They cannot teach it because they don't know it. So as usual, they have to wait on me to teach it before they can run around pretending they know. I tell you about it, you can't get it either. Get on your knees and pray all you want to. Fast all you want to. You're not the servant that Yahweh chose to reveal it to. You can try. Genesis 2:2. Read. You know. Praise God. Now that is a super complex, compounded verse. But just understand that Yahweh blessed the seventh day. Now you ought to know you're not keeping the seventh day with the white man's calendar when he has leap year. He gains a day, huh? And in the 7 years, he gains 7 days. So how can you be keeping the seventh day when to get back in tune with the solar calendar, he has changed a day, huh? Every 4 years. So in 28 years, he has changed the whole week. whole week. But every 4 years is leap year. 7 times 4 is 28. But it takes the devil 28 years to get back in tune with Yahweh. Then he starts it all over again. So there's no way in the world that you're worshiping the seventh day, blessing the seventh day, following the devil, when it takes him 28 years to get back on track. Then he leads you astray for 28 more years. So this year's Sabbath is on Sunday. Next year's Sabbath will be on Monday. That's 85. 86, it'll be Tuesday. 87, it'll be Wednesday. 88, Thursday. 89, Friday. 90, back to Saturday. But every single day gets equal treatment with Yahweh. So when you keep solar time, then Yahweh has set it in motion how he wants it to be. So that's a little wisdom on the first month, Abib. And the entire Bible is counted according to Yahweh's time. And if you do not count according to the way Yahweh set time in motion, you're out of time. You're out of step with time. And that'll keep you under a curse instead of a blessing. For Yahweh said, keeping the Sabbath is a sign between us. Exodus what? Exodus 31. 13. You have to keep the right day to be blessed. Read. Speak to the world. Speak to all the races and the nations. See, this is all about us. If you don't know that you're the children of Israel, you don't know this is talking to you. So the first trick of the devil is to make you think Israel is white people. So by now, how many of you have never read Revelation 3:9? Let me see your hands. You've never read Revelation chapter 3, verse 9. Somebody in the back? Turn to it for her sake. Is there anybody? Well, write down Revelation 3:9, and in there it tells you that the Jew is false and he's a liar. Those who say they're Jews are not, but do lie. I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Then he said in Revelation 2:9, I'm going to make them come and worship before your black feet. So they're liars. So what do you look like, Father?
Praise Yahweh, praise Yahweh. Anyway, you heard at least 7, 8 minutes of that recording that was recorded. Again, that particular feast took place according to what he just said in that video, 1984. As he mentioned, the Shabbat would then fall on a Monday, which would be 1985. So, with that now confirmed, I tell you, I make this proclamation as I get started in this revelation in secret by saying, if you believe in Mount Ab, if you are one that was following or is continuing to follow Mount Ab, who many of my people are still calling in the English tongue Yahweh ben Yahweh, if you believe in Mount Ab, then also believe in me. Believe in me. Mem Yod me. Mika. Why? Well, I was created by him. I was created by him. I was made by him. I was formed by him. And most importantly, I was named by him. I was named by him as he called me. He called me Mika. I was called Mika by him in 1979. And I come from him. I come from him, from everlasting. Even as I was also raised by him. That's who I am, from him. And as you just heard, the voice of whom many are still calling to this very day, I quote, Yahweh ben Yahweh. For yourself, even as an individual. Well, he said that the Sabbath day in 1984 was being observed on a Sunday. And here we are right now. Here he is. Here we is, not are. Here he is, IS, today, 40 years later. Exactly 40 years later, 2024. And we are now observing our solar Sabbath day on a Sunday. Keep in mind that the number value of Mem is 40. And Mem, of course, being the 13th Hebrew symbol, is the first Hebrew symbol that empowers mind terrestrial name that's known today, worldwide, world-renowned today, as I quote again, Mika. From left to right in English, M-I-C-A-H, Mika, or from right to left in Hebraic, Mem Yod Kaf He, Mika. Also keep in mind that I did not name myself. I am not self-named. I am not. I repeat, then, who was then Moses Israel, he called me Mika in 1979. That's when I had first returned to him in 1979, right here in Miami of Florida, in the very same suburb where I am standing right now, where I stand today. It's called, quote, Brownsville, end quote. He came right to Brownsville, suburb here in Miami, Florida, 1979. And since he, who was then in 1979 being called, I quote, Moses Israel, end quote, who then revealed himself in 1986 as Yahweh. Since you called me Mika, M-I-C-H, then that is who I am. That is who I am. I am the very same celestial soul that's known in history, biblically, spiritually, celestially, and terrestrially, as Mika. Mika the Morthite. This revelation now also means that I am the one who was loosed from the third seal. I was loosed from the third seal on the third day, D-A-Y, with a pair of balances in mine hand, H-A-N-D, again, which is day, D-A-Y, backward, and care of the Hebrew word known as yod, from right to left, yod dalet, from left to right, Y-A-D in English. And because of that, then that enables me to calculate time. The third seal that I was sealed in and now loosed has loosed me to calculate time, T-I-M-E. And that time, inside time, is me. Me is it. That's M-E-I-T or T-I-M-E. Me is it. Time. The sun is ruled time. The sun rules time. T-I-M-E. Me is it, the sun. Symbolized as the sun. And that calculation, see, that's calculate. Calculate. C-A-L-U-L-A-T-E. Calculate. Late in time. Calculate. I call you late. C-A-L, call you late. L-A-T-E, today. Late in time and prophecy. Calculate, which of course is synonymous for the word I quote, count, C-O-U-N-T. Calculate is synonymous for count. with a pair of balances in mine hand, even as I have already sat on a black horse in a time past. That was me. I sat on what is known symbolically as a horse, black horse, in a time past. Now, this was a secret, but no longer, no more. Why? Well, this secret was sealed in Revelation chapter 6 and verse 5. Revelation chapter 6, verse 5. I'm going to read that for you. It reads, I'm going to quote, "And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, 'Come and see.' And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand." End quote. That's H-A-N-D, again, hand. Now, this revelation is now telling this planet that the one who sat on this black horse is Micah, the birth site of the Bible, the 33rd book of the Bible, right in the middle. That's what that book is, called Micah. Now, with that reminder, let's make an extreme emphasis to you that this horse is an allegory and a simile at the same time that represents the word in English, I quote, power, P-O-W-E-R, power. Now, this power is the same power that is what was used that came forth with fingers of a man's hand, who then wrote over against the candlestick upon the plaster of the wall of the king's palace. The king's palace today in this land being known as the White House of Washington, D.C. That means I'm going to write against the king's White House, Pharaoh's White House here in this land today, to set time back as it's supposed to be observed by the Israelites, my people. Again, and that's going to be in 1 hour of a day. It's prophesied to be in 1 hour of a day. This Paul was also sealed in the book called Micah in chapter 3 and verse 8. Micah chapter 3, verse 8, and that reads, I quote, "But truly I am full of power. I am full of power by the Spirit of the Lord, and of judgment, and of might, to declare to Jacob his transgression, and to Israel his sin," end quote. And no one knew what that meant. No one knew, even after transliteration, what that verse meant, except Micah. Well, the secret is Micah was prophesied and promised to come back and declare unto Jacob his transgression, and to Israel his sin, which are two different types of people, minds of people, Jacob and Israel. One thing you must also keep in mind is that the sons of Israel are not consumed. That means only the sons of Israel, the sons of Jacob, are not consumed. The sons of Jacob are not consumed, but the sons of Israel may be in a little trouble. You don't know what that means. That's Malachi chapter 3, verse 6. I change not. Therefore, the sons of Jacob, are not consumed. Israel may be in a lot of trouble. In the meantime, this power that you just read, if you've read with me, that's found in Micah chapter 3, verse 8. This power is celestial. It's celestial power. It comes from heaven, far from beyond this planet. Hebrew, far from beyond, from everlasting. And this power identifies the one who sat on this horse that was sealed as being black. B-L-A-C-K, black. That black symbolizes that when this one sat on the power that was in his hand, it also describes symbolically as a pair of balances. Then that immediately identified this one, Micah, who had already sat on this powerful horse, as he also sat in darkness. That black horse represents power that was in darkness. Now, this is proven in Micah chapter 7, verses 8 and 9, and that reads, I'm going to quote, read with me. "Rejoice not against me, O mine enemy, When I fall, I shall arise. When I sit in darkness, the Lord shall be a light unto me. Micah. I will bear the indignation of the Lord, because I have sinned against him, until he plead my cause and execute judgment for me. He will bring me forth to the light, and I shall behold his righteousness. End quote. As you just read with me, verse 8 confirms the darkness that this power of Micah's hand was facing as he sat in the darkness of time. And verse 9 means that Micah will bear a particular indignation that the Lord, Yahweh, had left for only Micah to bear. And that indignation of Yahweh, is his own children worshiping and serving other gods, and the laws and standards of this other gods in plural, especially those in the land where Judah is being held captive today in bondage, which is known geographically as the United States of North America. That is where the majority of Judah is today. And some are spread out in the islands of the Caribbean, all over this planet. Meanwhile, among those laws and standards of this land and other lands where these gods are that my people are following today, as it is in all other lands of this planet, is keeping the correct Sabbath day. That is the indignation. And what Ma'ab is angry for, they are not keeping the correct Sabbath day. And that's what brought on the indignation. The indignation is for not keeping the correct Sabbath day on the correct time and day. As that is proven in Deuteronomy chapter 29 and verses 1 through 29. Deuteronomy chapter 29 is where that proof is. And verses 1 through 29, that's the whole chapter, of which verses 24 through 29 reads, I'm going to read in part verbatim. Verse 24, even all nations shall say, wherefore hath the Lord done thus unto this land? What meaneth the heat of this great anger? Then men shall say, because they have forsaken the covenant of the Lord God of their fathers, which he made with them when he brought them forth out of the land of Egypt. For they went and served other gods and worshipped them, gods whom they knew not, and whom he had not given unto them. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against this land, to bring upon it all the curses that are written in this book. And the Lord rooted them out of their land in anger and in wrath and in great indignation, there's the word, and cast them into another land, America, as it is this day, 2024, April 11th. See, the secret things belong unto the Lord our God, but those things which are revealed belong unto us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of this law. End quote. End of verse 29. And they did not. They did not. They're not doing all the laws. Judah and all of Israel are still breaking the laws today. So you should want to know, what is the law of verse 29 that caused the indignation of the Lord? What is the law? Well, the answer is keeping the secret of when the true Sabbath of the Hebrews is supposed to be kept, as a sign that you heard them reading, although it was a little garbled, maybe you could not hear it plainly, but keeping the law as a sign of the Sabbath. that Judah is waking up, supposed to wake up and return to their own God. And that secret was introduced to you by Yodewafe in 1984, according to that recording. And maybe some who are still watching this video today, still here today, who were there in the flesh, face to face. Well, face to faces. But only as a synoptic. Remember, in the recording, Ma'ab says he's only going to give you a touching on a synoptic overview of what he was revealing of the Sabbath. Synoptic. Remember? And that was the same year when the Sabbath day was being observed on a Sunday in 1984. And that would mean that this introduction was made after March 11th, 1984. Why? Well, if you ask that question, it would be because our next year's cycle of 12 months of 30 perfect days, as he said, that's 30 days times 12 months. That equals a total of 360 perfect days, is always known to begin in the spring. In the spring. And the Gregorian almanac signifies that time of the spring month of that Gregorian calendar, to be that in care of their month that they named March. And the day is usually based on the 11th day of March, of spring, although some almanacs say the 16th day of March. Why? Well, that signifies the time that commenced our exodus from Egypt over 3,500 years ago. And that also signifies was known to the Jews today as, I quote, Passover. Passover and Feast of Unleavened Bread, end quote. However, you also heard Mount Ob say in that video recording that we played a terrible role in not keeping the true Sabbath, and that we were cursed if you're not counting correctly. And also in that recording that we played earlier in this testimony a few moments ago, that's now in care of YouTube in case you want to hear it, YouTube, that at the end of 12 months, you add on 5 days. You add on 5 days. Actually, he said at the end of 12, at the end of the 12, you add on 5 days. But what he did not, and what you did not hear him say, was to add on 5 days at the end of a specific thing. I just mentioned months, but he did not say months. You can go back and hear it. He said at the end of 12, at the end of 12, at the end of 12, you have to add 5 days. He did not specify at the end of the year, at the end of 12, what you add on is 5 days. Why? Well, because none of those back then could have heard a word that he was saying at the time. No one. Or even after that time. And that's because only one was prophesied and sealed with a pair of balances in his hand to be able to hear. So what is a pair of balances? That should be your next question. What is a pair of balances that you know as balances, literally? Well, the secret is, the mystery of these balances, I will say now, is that those balances are an allegory and symbolic for ears, the ears of the human skull. In other words, a pair of ears, a pair of ears. Now, this is proven under the Hebrew word known as azan, azan. And you can find that in your Strong's Concordance under reference, Strong's Concordance reference H239. That is, you'll see it's printed there in the book, Strong's Concordance, even the Hebrew lexicon. And it's being defined as a primitive root, rather identical with Strong's H238, through the idea of scales as if two ears are used to hear, listen, to give ear to hearken to be obedient, and to hear or listen to prayers of God. Just to name a few. You can look it up and search it for yourself, although we may have aided you with it on our screen. And that will explain a little more of what the balances are. And neither did you hear my op say where or when or how you are to add on to those 5 days during your count of so many years. After 4 years, that is, after every 4 years of their calendar, which is called their, quote, leap year, end quote, leap year, times 7 leap years, that equals 28 total years. That also gave them an extra 7 days, that allowed them one full whole week worth of their 7 days, right? You heard that. Well, I wonder if you also heard him say that you wouldn't mind him being there with them at the time, teaching them for 8 days, 8 nights, 8 nights a week. Why would Bob say 8 nights a week? All crypto, madrash, secrets. Though the question, should you have one, should be or now is, how did we arrive today, 40 years later, from 1984, to observe our solar Sabbath day on the exact day of the week that Mount Ob deemed as Sunday, exactly 40 years later, and 40 years ago, 1984, 2024? Well, here's the answer. To begin with, we have to go to Micah, the Morosite, his book, for his seal revelation of now loosing his celestial calculator of mathematics. And we need Micah's calculator, in order for us not to count the treasures of the wicked or treasures of wickedness, the treasures of wickedness that is now in the house of the wicked. Why? Because their count is a scant, S-C-A-N-T, a scant count. This means that their count is a lean, L-E-A-N, is a lean. It will cause you to lean on their count. Reference Strong's Concordance H7329, scant. It means to lean. And that is how they measure their time. And as they measure their time by leaning, and you count with them, it causes you to follow their measure. And as you do so, as you follow their measure, then you find yourself leaning your hand on the wrong wall that has a serpent on that wall that is just waiting to bite your hand. As is now found leaning on that wall of time, just as it was promised in the book called Amos in chapter 5, verse 19. Make a note, you can read that. Amos chapter 5, verse 19. Make a note. This means that their count of measure is abominable. It is abominable. And this is proven in secret. It was secret. It's not anymore. In the book called Micah, in chapter 6, and verses 10 and 11. And that reads, I'm going to quote verbatim with questions, saying, are there yet the treasures of wickedness in the house of the wicked, and the scant measure that is abominable? Verse 11, shall I count them pure with the wicked balances, and with the bag of deceitful weights? End quote. Well, can you answer the questions? You who is tuning in and watching this video. Can you answer the questions? Well, if you cannot, I can. I can answer them. So let's answer them for you. Let's answer the questions in order to get to the truth of our Sabbath day observance. First, let's look at this word bag, B-A-G, that you just read with me in Micah chapter 6, verse 11. That bag that is found today in Micah chapter 6, verse 11 is an allegory, a prophetical allegory for the name Gad, G-A-D, Gad, which is the 11th son of Jacob, or Jacob, should you prefer. Gad, the 11th son, 11. It's amazing how this is April 11th today. So how is it that this bag represents Gad? How? Well, because the B that you see here, the B of bag, B-A-G, from left to right in English, is a lowercase, the lowercase b, bag. And when you turn this lowercase b, the second English's letter, when you turn this b that is facing the east, the loop is facing the east. When you take this b facing the east and turn to the west or backward, then it becomes the English's letter known as D. D, the fourth English's letter of their system. And when you take the now dag, D-A-G, that's from left to right, and then turn them toward the west from right to left, then that now spells Gad, G-A-D, Gad. Now the name Gad means troop, T-R-O-O-P, troop. Reference Strong's H 1410. Now take a look at Genesis chapter 49. Genesis chapter 49, and let's look at verse 19. And that says, and I quote, Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. End quote. That means Gad was preserved, his name was preserved for something to take place the last days that involves troop. The meaning of his name, not Gad himself, the meaning of the name. I made that clear in a book I wrote that's called I Bear Witness of the Son, the third edition, the third and final edition, third volume. See, that's the last days, and that is proven in verse 1 of Genesis chapter 49. Now, Gad also means invade and attack, as troops would do. Invade and attack. That's reference Strong's H 1464. Now look at Micah chapter 5 and read it with me. Micah chapter 5. Isn't that something? Micah chapter 5, as in the fifth hand, or 5 days, and verse 1. And that reads, Now gather thyself in troops, O daughter of troops. He hath laid siege against us. They shall smite the judge of Israel with a rod upon the cheek. End quote. Now, with that revealed, that means that this name, Gad, in English, that seal these troops in plural, by far and true, another allegory for days in plural. And these days are found as 30, that makes up a perfect solar month that must now be revived and restored in the last days, just as promised by the judge of Israel that was smitten with a rod upon the cheeks during the bondage of Judah, of which Micah had promised to return in the last days to declare to Jacob his transgression and Israel his sin. That was also given a heads up and proven in Genesis chapter 49, verse 1. And for what? Of breaking the law of the Sabbath. How? Well, by telling Judah, or to tell Judah, the truth. How? Well, by declaring the truth to Jacob, to show the truth to Israel, and make known the true Sabbath day to all 12 tribes of Israel, to quicken, restore, and revive the true time during the springtime, and to breathe the breath of life back into Judah's nostrils that will eventually revive Judah as well, even in the time of the springtime. All that was hidden in the word troops, Troops in English from left to right. Reference to prove it, Strong's Concordance. Reference H, 2416, 2416, as well as H, 2421, and H, 2331. Make a note and study that for yourself. This also came from the name Gad. Remember, Gad, G-A-D in English from left to right, the 11th son of Jacob, whose name and meaning of his name was preserved for the last days, that is now found in Genesis chapter 49, verse 19. Again, I'll read that again. Quote, Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last days, the last day, at the last, end quote. Now, this means in order to do this reviving and restoring of the true Sabbath day observance, we must now go to the previous year of 1984, which is 41 years ago, and that would be the year known as 1983. So now, in 1983, we must now go to the designated day and month during 1983 of our solar calendar, which established the beginning of the perfect count and 360-day solar calendar, which is the 15th day of the 7th month in 1983 of the solar calendar, which according to the Gregorian calendar would be September, sundown of 26 until sundown of 27th, the 15th day of the 7th month. So why must we go there? Well, because that is the day when Micah came forth out of a womb of a woman of the Isles. And this is proven in another 49, which is Isaiah chapter 49, verses 1 and 2 and 3. And that reads, as I quote, Listen, O Isles, unto me, and hearken, ye people, from far. The Lord hath called me from the womb, from the bowels of my mother hath he made mention of my name. Verse 2, and he hath made my mouth like a sharp sword. In the shadow of his hand, H-A-N-D, hath he hid me, and made me a polished shaft. In his quiver hath he hid me. Verse 3, and said unto me, Thou art my servant, O Israel, in whom I will be glorified, end quote. Knowing that today I am walking this planet with an identification card that says Micah Israel. Coincidence? I say not. In the meanwhile, and of course, this is the same 15th day of the 7th month, according to our law of observing, was known to us as, I quote, the Feast of Tabernacles. The Feast of Tabernacles. And that may be part of what was said of that recording, that the commentator originally came on and said, this is the Feast of Tabernacles. Maybe not a mistake. Meanwhile, this law is found in Leviticus chapter 23 and verses 34, 35, and 36. Leviticus 23, chapter 23, verses 34, 35, and 36, and that reads, I'm quoting, verse 34, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, The 15th day of this 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days unto the Lord. 35, of the first day shall be an holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein. Verse 36, 7 days ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. On the 8th day shall be an holy convocation unto you. Ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. It is a solemn assembly, and ye shall do no servile work therein. End quote. As you just confirmed the King James Version Holy Bible with me, the Feast of Tabernacles is to be observed on the 15th day of the 7th month. Now, this means that the 15th day of the 7th month, that is, in care of their 1983 lunar Gregorian calendar, fell in September 26th of 1983 at sundown on a Monday. That was at sundown Monday until sundown Tuesday, September 27th at sundown, which was 15. And then the next sundown to sundown was 27 to 28, or from Tuesday to Wednesday of that calendar, and so on until we arrived to exactly 30 days, 30 exact days. And that now puts us on sundown Wednesday, October 26, 1983, until sundown Thursday, October 27th, 1983, as the 15th day of the 8th month. And that date fulfilled King James Version Bible book called Isaiah, chapter 9, verse 6, in the year 1935. And we're going to read that for you in like manner. That's found in Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6. As I quote, "For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace." End quote. Now, here in the Bible, you see that the one whom they are calling today in English, I quote, Yahweh ben Yahweh, end quote, they all know that he came out of a womb in a terrestrial vessel on Monday, October 27th, 1935. 1935. So how is it that many of my people today are thinking that the Christ is going to come through a cloud and break open the sky, when yet the mighty God himself is born from the womb? Nowhere in the Bible does it say the Son of God is not going to be coming back born through a womb. In fact, the Bible says he's coming back born through and coming through a womb. Hebrews chapter 7, verse 14 says he will be springing out of Judah. Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14 says he would be born from a woman, virgin, shall conceive. Micah chapter 5, verse 2 says he'll be born. Matthew chapter 2, and verses 3, 4, and 5 said he should be born. So how could my Christian-minded people think he'd be coming through a cloud in the last days, breaking up the sky? Don't you think it's kind of ludicrous for him to come through the sky if he's in New York? I mean, how are the people in Oregon going to see him? How are the people in Texas going to see him? How are those in North Carolina going to see him, or Georgia, if he come through New York, or if he come through Tennessee, or Alabama, or Detroit, or Washington, Seattle, Washington? How are they going to see him over in Israel if he come through the cloud in New York? Never mind answering that question. I'm not going to spend time on that. It's ludicrous. My people living in a Christian fantasy world. In the meantime, now as we have read Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, as the 15th day of the 8th month, or October 27th, 1983, as we use that date in October 1983, we could begin our count towards our next solar year of our completion of 360 perfect days, or 12 months times 30 days, to see and confirm how we got to Sunday, 1984, being our Sabbath day. And that will also be our starting point to be in the exact accordance with Man Ab Yodid Wavhe for today. So let's do it. Beginning with that Tuesday, that Thursday to Friday. From that Thursday to Friday being 16, and from that Thursday to November 11th, 1983, at sundown, being the first day of the ninth month. And then count 30 more days from Friday, November the 11th at sundown, to Saturday, November 12th at sundown, begins the first full day of the ninth month that year that should take us to and put us on Sunday, December 11th at sundown, to Monday, December 12th, 1983 at sundown as the first day of the 10th month. And then count 30 more days from Sunday, December 11th at sundown, to Monday, December 12th, 1983 at sundown, that began the first full day of the 10th month that should take us now and to put us on Tuesday, January 10th at sundown, to Wednesday, January 11th, 1984 at sundown, as the first day of the 11th month. And then count 30 more days from Tuesday, January 10th at sundown, to Wednesday, January 11th. From sundown, from Tuesday, January 10th at sundown, to Wednesday, January 11th, 1984 at sundown, that began the first full day of the 11th month. And that should take us now to and put us on Saturday, March 10th at sundown, to Sunday, March 11th, 1984 at sundown, as the first day of the first month that was recognized in the video recording as we heard a bit, as well as the year in 1984 that Mount Ob said and deemed as our Sabbath day that year. Now, when you do that calculation on your own, that count, when you study the word count, it's going to take you to the word calculation in Greek. You can do that on your own. When you do that count and you get to March 11th, now, as you added on 5 days at the end of that count, as he did not say, if you add on 5 days, that's going to put you somewhere in Thursday to Friday. And that's not what he said the Sabbath was that year. See, that was all the secret, the mystery. Keep in mind that he was talking to a whole bunch of hypocrites and devils that were listening, even now today, to the recording. In the meantime, you heard my then say that the next year, from 1984, our Sabbath day would be observed on a Monday. And then he uttered the year 1985. So with that confirmation, what we must do now is begin our year's count with a rotation of each year to observe our Sabbath day, just as Mount Ob said we must do in that video recording that year, again in 1984. The next year, and rotate a day, and the next year, and rotates a day, and so on until we get to the next set of 7 leap years, or the first 28 years from 1984, which is the same count. Why? Why must we do that? Well, because the year 1984 was a leap year within itself. Check the calendar and see for yourself. So this means that the year 1984 will also start our first series of 7 leap years until we come to the end of those 7 or 28 years, or 7 leap years or 28 years that should take us to sometime in the early to mid 2000s, if my calculations of mathematics is right. Right? Right. Especially in effort to find those 7 extra days that were placed on the altar and also under the altar, the same altar that was sealed in Deuteronomy chapter 16. There's the same altar that was mentioned in Matthew chapter 23 and care of Matthew chapter 24 and verses 22 and 23, as well as in the book called Revelation in chapter 6 that we read earlier and verse 9, and in chapter 11 of Revelation and verse 1, the same altar of measure. So here we go. Let's get started. Now, the next year from 1984, of course, our Sabbath day was to be observed on a Monday in 1985. That would be from sundown Sunday, March 10th, to sundown Monday, March 11th, 1985. The next year from 1985 to 1986, our Sabbath day was to be observed on a Tuesday. That would be from sundown Monday, March 10th, to sundown Tuesday, March 11th, 1986. The next year, from 1986 to 1987, our Sabbath day was to be observed on a Wednesday. And that would be from sundown Tuesday, March 10th, to sundown Wednesday, March 11th, 1987. If you want to pause here and get a calendar or go online and go to Google and search for a calendar, you can follow this. That will help you. In the meantime, as we resume now, the next year from 1987 to 1988, our Sabbath day was to be observed on a Thursday. However, 1988 is also the first leap year from 1984 that we come to. This means that we are now about to lose March 11th. That will not coincide with the rotation to the next day of the three previous years, which of course will place March 11th, 1988 to be on a Thursday. This also means that March 11th, 1988 will not be on a Thursday, but will now appear on their lunar or moon calendar as a Friday. So take a look and see for yourself on your calendar. In the meantime, this now means that we can no longer use March 11th as our designated date, D-A-T-E. Why? Well, because our Sabbath day rotates every year and is not to follow their date. Why? Again, because if we follow their date of March 11th in care of their leap year of 1988, then that would throw off our perfect rotation of the next day to observe our Sabbath day. And that will also cause us to meddle in agreement with them and their change of time. We will meddle with them, M-E-D-D-L-E, meddle in agreement with them and their change of time. So, and because we are to meddle not with them and their change of times and laws of time, according to Daniel chapter 7, verse 25, which says, and I quote, Daniel chapter 7, verse 25, I quote, "And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times, and the dividing of time," end quote. And to prove that we are not to meddle with them, look at Proverbs chapter 24 and verse 21, which says, and I quote, "My son, fear thou the Lord and the king, and meddle not with them that are given to change," end quote. Change what? The same change of Daniel chapter 7, verse 25, times and laws. But come out of her, my people, according to Revelation chapter 18, verse 4, come out of her, which says, and I quote, Revelation chapter 18, verse 4, and I heard another voice from heaven, another voice, other than Yahweh, been Yahweh's voice, another voice from heaven, saying, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive not of her plagues. End quote. You got it? Make that clear. As we resume our solar Sabbath day count, as we continue on in care of our rotation of 1988, was to be observed from sundown Wednesday, March 9th, to sundown Thursday, now March 10th, 1988. And the next year, from 1988 to 1989, our Sabbath day was to be observed on a Friday. That would be from sundown Thursday, March 9th, to sundown Friday, March 10th, 1989. And the next year, from 1989 to 1990, our Sabbath day was to be observed on a Saturday. That would be from sundown Friday, March 9th, to sundown Saturday, March 10th, 1990. And of course, that was the year when Mount Ob was taken into custody later on that year in November 7th, 1990, just to make mention of that. And the next year, from 1990 to 1991, our Sabbath day was to be observed right back to Sunday, just as we observed in 1984. And that would be from sundown Saturday, March 9th, to sundown Sunday, March 10th, 1991. Now, the next year, from 1991 to 1992, our Sabbath day was to be observed on a Monday. And it was. Check your records. However, 1992 is also the second of the 7 leap years from 1984. This means that we are now about to lose March 9th and 10th after this leap year, just as we lost March 10th and 11th after the first of the 7 leap years. That, of course, will not coincide with the rotation to the next day of the 3 previous years. And furthermore, of course, if we continue and coincide with the 3 previous years from 1992, that would have placed March 10th, 1992, to be on a Tuesday. This also means that March 10th, 1992, will not be on a Monday, but will now appear on their lunar or moon calendar as a Tuesday. Now take a look and see for yourself. So, I mean, we must avoid their deception of change and continue on with our rotation to the next year from 1991 to 1992 for our Sabbath day to be observed away from their leap year that year, as it was observed on a Monday. That would be from sundown Sunday, March 8th, to sundown Monday, March 9th, 1992. Now, as our solar time of years continue with our Sabbath day rotating every year since 1984, and with the first leap year after 1984 being observed in 1988, and we continued our count of a total of 7 leap years from 1988. And that took us to the following count of 7 Sabbaths from 1988. Again, as our Sabbath day that year was observed from sundown Wednesday, March 9th, to sundown Thursday, March 10th, to the 7th leap year that was observed in 2012 as follows. Here's the list. 1988, sundown Wednesday, March 9th to Thursday, March 10th. 1992, sundown Sunday, March 8th to March 9th, Monday. Number 3, 1996. These are leap years. Sundown Thursday, March 7th. To sundown Friday, March 8th. Number 4, leap year, 2000. Sundown Monday, March 6th. To Tuesday, March 7th. Leap year. Number 5, 2004. Leap year. Sundown Friday, March 5th. To sundown Saturday, March 6th. Leap year. Number 6, leap year, 2008. Sundown Tuesday, March 4th. To sundown Wednesday, March 5th. Leap year. Number 7, the 7th and final 7 years, 2012. From sundown Saturday, March 3rd. To sundown Sunday, March 4th. Leap year, 7 leap years. So now with that count, we start over our count. However, remember, 28 years, Mob said you have to start over and try to catch up. And if you follow and do your own mathematics and count from 1992, you'll see how the 9th day and 10th day decreases every leap year all the way down to 1 week, less than 1 week in March, all the way down to March 3rd and 4th, just as he said. So as we start over our count, however, we do not start over our Sabbath day's rotation. We just start over the count. Why? Well, because we must keep our solar day, our Sabbath day cycle decently and in order, according to 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 40. And we must remain perfect. It also means that we must continue our rotation from 2012 to 2013 to the next day, which is from sundown Sunday to sundown Monday. However, opposed to the date of their 2013 Gregorian calendar being recognized as sundown Sunday, March 3rd, to sundown Monday, March 4th, 2013, we are going to take those 7 days that they added for the past 28 years that they want us to do and add those 7 days to our next Sabbath day observance that they want us to do and start our next series of 7 leap years at sundown Sunday, March 10th, to sundown Monday, March 11th, 2013. Got it? See, I know they'll watch it. That's why I want you to got it. In other words, count to 7 sundowns from sundown March 3rd, 2013. And when you do, then you should get to the next Sunday, which is March 10th, 2013, and right back to the beginning of how we started this count back in 1985, which was our exact same Sabbath day observance for that year. Now let's start out with one. Let's do so. Number 1, 2014, sundown Monday, March 10th, to Tuesday, March 11th, sundown. Number 2, 2015, sundown Tuesday, March 10th, to sundown Wednesday, March 11th. Number 3, 2016, now we lose a day. Why? Because this year, 2016, they added a day to the first leap year after 2012, which was a supposedly new cycle for us to count of this after the 7-year series of 28 years in total of leap years from sundown Wednesday, March 9th, to sundown Thursday, March 10th. And number 4, in 2017, from sundown Thursday, March 9th, to sundown Friday, March 10th. Number 5, 2018, sundown Friday, March 9th. The sundown Saturday, March 10th. Number 6, 2019. Sundown Saturday, March 9th. The sundown Sunday, March 10th. Number 7, 2020. Now we lose a day, another day. And they added another day to their first leap year after 2012, which is also now the second leap year after 2012. They began their new cycle, their new count of their 7-year series of 28 years in total, now from sundown Sunday, March 8th, to sundown Monday, March 9th. Number 8, 2021. Sundown Monday, March 8th to sundown Tuesday, March 9th, 2021. Number 9, 2022. Sundown Tuesday, March 8th to sundown Wednesday, March 9th, 2022. And number 10, 2023. Sundown Wednesday, March 8th to sundown Thursday, March 9th, 2023. Number 11, 2024. This year. This year is when we say that our Sabbath day began at sundown Saturday, March 9th, 2024 till sundown Sunday, March 10th, 2024, and is now being observed from sundown Saturday to sundown Sunday, just as it was 40 years ago by Mount Ob, Yotewave, in 1984. So how did we get to number 9, 2024, right? After actually number 12, and say that we left off at sundown Wednesday, March 8th, sundown Thursday, March 9th of 2023. And how do we get to that? As we look at now, that the sundown Saturday to sundown Sunday is off. And it's supposed to be as it was 40 years ago by Mount Ob, Yotewave in 1984. How? And why is that? You should be wondering why. And some may have already celebrated and say, well, his count is off. Mika's count is off. And why not from sundown Thursday, March 7th, 2024, to sundown Friday, March 8th, 2024, as some of our people are doing today? Well, because, again, 2012 ended a 7-year cycle of 28 years that was created from 7 leap years in total. This also means that our new cycle count began in 2016 as the first leap year after 2012 that added an extra day in February, as well as in 2020, as in 2020, that also added an extra day in February. That's 2 extra days. This also means that according to that cycle of count, as we added those 7 extra days back in 2013, when we landed on Sunday, March 10th, 2013, and as our new series of our Sabbath day observance, just as it was in 1985. Remember? Ken, yes, you remember. See, that's when our Sabbath day was observed on a Monday, from sundown Sunday to sundown Monday. And as we now find ourselves with an extra day added onto this series of leap years, 7 leap years, that actually started in 2020, we are now facing an extra day from 2020, and as well as now in 2024. leap year, or did you not know that this is also a leap year, 2024? Well, let it be known, if you didn't know, that this is also a leap year. And that also puts our Sabbath day observers with an extra day from sundown Friday, March 8th, up to sundown Saturday, March 9th, 2024. Right? No? Confused? You should be. In fact, your mind should be wore out by now. So since you say no and you are confused, okay, well, let us explain. Let us now explain, because Yod, Mount Ab, is not the author of confusion that's come to mind to establish the kingdom of Shalom, which is peace. So now that I have your attention, I know I have your attention now, so pay attention to this time. We'll start with a question or two, which is, why is that count seem to be a little off? Why is it off? Why? Well, did you count wrong? Second question. No, we did not. Here's why. First, we counted that way to confuse the devils and counterattack. Remember, attack the troops? Attack? We counted that way to confuse the devils and counterattack their charged attack of his time of 6,000 years that he gave them to rule through Cain. And here is how, and keep this in mind as they key this in, as I give you now the key of David, David. See, Mount Ab in Iwafe first came to Miami in 1979 as Moses Israel, an appellation. And that year, their Gregorian calendar recognized January 1st, 1979, as their new year that was observed on a Monday. Check your records. And that is the same as it is to this year, 2024, right? Yes. New Year's Day, 2024, fell on a Monday, just as it did in 1979. In fact, this year, 2024, the whole world recognized January 1st as their new year, and on a Monday. Now, with that reminder, I want you to go back now and reflect what happened here in Miami at Bayside on that night of January 1st, 2024. You can go to YouTube and you should see it went viral, global. They say they were visited from some beings from another planet, some tall beings, like 8 to 9 feet tall. Well, look it up. It's not my subject. Nevertheless, and in the meantime, however, the difference between the 2 years, that's 1979, and this year, 2024, is that 1979 was not a leap year. That is, not as this year, 2024 is a leap year, which is now recorded in their books, of course, as a leap year, 2024. Needless to say, but I must, as their New Year's recognition and celebrations continued throughout the years from 1979 till now, 2024, that is their New Year's Day, known as January 1st, that were also observed on a Monday without it being a leap year, was also recorded in 5 following years. And those 5 following years was number 2 from 1979, 1990, which again, of course, was the year when Mount Ab was taken into custody in New Orleans, Louisiana by the U.S. federal government on November 7th of that year, 1990, as well as number 3, the year 2001, which of course was the year when Mount Orb returned to Miami of Florida from prison on September 26th of that year, 2001. Go take a look at the records and see. And he returned at sundown September 26th, which was also the beginning of the Feast of Tabernacles that year. Again, September 26th at sundown, 2001, was the beginning of the Feast of Tabernacles. And that date is preserved for that celebration every year on that very same date. And you wonder why he chose that date to return to Miami of Florida, which is the very same city where he first arrived to here in 1979. Think about that for a moment. Your answer. And finally, number 4, the year 2007, which of course was the year when Mount Orb ascended back up into heaven on May 7th of that year, 2007, which is 17 years ago coming up next month. Did you know that? Even as he had that terrestrial vessel that he used cremated days later, burned up. Now, in synopsis, all 4 of those New Years, or those New Year's Day, that featured January 1st, began on a Monday. And finally, why did the years 1996 and this year, 2024, of which both years were also recognized as their New Year's Day, as both years fell on the same day of their week, W-E-A-K, week, which was observed on a Monday of their Gregorian calendar, as they also added another day in February of both years. Why? Well, they did that to wear out your mind from keeping the correct Sabbath day, just as promised in Daniel chapter 7, verse 25 that we read earlier. This means that the year 2016 was not to be recognized as a leap year, as they wanted you to believe that and add that extra day during your year to year and day to day, day to the next day, a rotation count for your Sabbath day observance. Why? Why would they do that? Because they all know they are the ones responsible for what is found printed in Exodus. See, it's printed in Exodus chapter 31 and verse 13 through 17. And that reads, I'm going to quote, it reads, follow it. Verse 13, speak thou also unto the children of Israel, saying, verily my Sabbaths ye shall keep. For it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I am the Lord that doth sanctify you. Verse 14, you shall keep the Sabbath, therefore, for it is holy unto you. Everyone that defileth it shall surely be put to death. For whosoever doeth any work therein, that soul shall be cut off from among his people. Verse 15, 6 days may work be done, but in the seventh is a Sabbath of rest, holy to the Lord. Whosoever doeth any work in the Sabbath day, he shall surely be put to death. Verse 16, wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations, for a perpetual covenant. And finally, verse 17, it is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, and on the 7th day he rested and was refreshed. End quote. In the verse 17. So the question is now, why did the devils rejoice when you added the extra day in 2016 as part of your rotation count? I just read to you why. You just followed it. Because that was the year when you ignored my soul of telling all of you and ye, doing a live stream teleconference call that year that I was hosting, I had made an announcement during that particular teleconference call. I made an announcement globally that those 5 days were shortened. Now you may be asking which 5 days? Well, those 5 days, the very same 5 days that Mount R mentioned in that video recording. Go back and hear it again for yourself. This means that opposed to when we were adding those 7 extra days onto our rotation, our rotating count back in 2012, when we were adding those 7 extra days onto that rotating count back in 2012, my celestial soul also took away some days by shortening those 5 extra days in 2016. Why? Well, in order to fulfill Matthew chapter 24 and verse 22. For the elect's sake. This means that as we were counting today, earlier, through this testimony, as well as I continue to reveal secrets that I was taught in secret. Part of those secrets is when we were to observe our Sabbath day that Mount Ob kept from you since 1984. And that will explain why he said that he is not going to go into that night, but probably on a night when he is feeling good night, feeling good. But what he did not tell you is the secret that had already shortened those 5 extra days. Why? Again, to save the elect, also known prophetically as, I quote, for the elect's sake, end quote. Now, this is proven in a book called Mark, the New Testament, chapter 13, 13 as in Mem, and verse 20. And that reads, as I quote, and except that the Lord has shortened those days, no flesh shall be saved. But for the elect's sake, whom he hath chosen, he hath shortened those days, end quote. That's past tense. So you see, those 5 extra days were already shortened. This means that as those that are hard-headed continued to count throughout the years, those 5 extra days added on just as they did the first time, according to how I demonstrated earlier. At that same time, as we began to observe our Sabbath-day rotation from year to year, from 1985, as we reached their year, 2016, that was to be observed from sundown Wednesday, March 9th, to sundown Thursday, March 10th, 2016. Remember? Yeah, you remember. Well, my celestial soul had already removed those 5 extra days that took us back. It took us backward. It took us backward 5 days from Wednesday, March 9th, 2016 to Friday, March 4th, 2016. Now, with that revelation, this means that when you count from sundown Friday, March 4th, 2016 to sundown Saturday, March 5th, 2016, that is, as our new prophetical observance for our Sabbath day, and begin to count your rotations over again for the next 8 years and the next day of observance from that point, here is what you should have. Number 1, from 2016, sundown Friday, March 4th, to sundown Saturday, March 5th, 2016, Sabbath day observance. Number 2, 2017, from sundown Saturday, March 4th, to sundown Sunday, March 5th, 2017. Number 3, 2018, sundown Sunday, March 4th, to sundown Monday, March 5th, 2018. Number 4, 2019, from sundown Monday, March 4th, to sundown Tuesday, March 5th, 2019. 2020, now a leap year, a leap year. However, this leap year in 2020 was not only empowered by the devils to behold an extra day in February, which is also the shortest month of their 12 months, that they have also designated to the so-called, quote, African American, end quote, to observe their imitation Black history of being adopted. But this particular leap year of 2020 was also used to add those 7 years that beheld their New Year's Day to befall on a Monday, again, which was the years, quote, 1979, 1990, 1996, 2001, 2007, and 2018. And because of their tough prophetical deception to change times and laws, and they were also given to his hand of measure that was sealed in Revelation chapter 11, verse 2. That is, until the time and times and the dividing of time of today. That measure of Revelation chapter 11, verse 2 were given to the Gentiles, that you were not to measure. Leave them out. That had allowed the preeminence of the Christ to have taken those 6 extra days in care of 6 months that beheld Monday on January 1st, plus the extra day in February of the first leap year of the year 2016, the 2016 year cycle after 2012, which made it a total of 7 days, and added those 7 days to the altar of measure, that I will not take those wicked balances of their measure, which is a scant measure of the house of wickedness. I take those 7 days to the altar of measure, the moral measure that was sealed in Revelation chapter 11 and verse 1, that then caused their year 2020, to submit to our Sabbath day rotation of observance for that year to have been observed from sundown Tuesday, March 10th, to sundown Wednesday, March 11th, 2020, and in 2021, from sundown Wednesday, March 10th, to sundown Thursday, March 11th, 2021, and number 7, 2022, from sundown Thursday, March 10th, again from sundown Thursday, March 10th, 2022, to sundown Friday, March 11th, 2022, number 8, 2023, 8 nights a week. Here's your number 8 that I mentioned for 8 nights a week in that video recording. From 2023, from sundown Friday, March 10th, to sundown Saturday, March 11th, 2023, and now today, number 9, 2024, which is also a leap year. The days are now thrown way off, to sundown Saturday, March 9th, to sundown Sunday, March 10th, 2024. And why is that? Well, how did we get from March 10th, that fell on a Friday in 2023, to now the same date has fallen on a Sunday this year in 2024? Why is that? Don't forget, because it's a leap year. But just as it was observed on Saturday to Sunday, at sundown to sundown, on March 10th to the 11th, March 11th in 1984, Vermont Arb first introduced this prophetic cryptogram to those that were there in the Temple of Love that year, that was also deemed as international headquarters, 2766 Northwest 62nd Street, here in Miami, Florida, 33147. All those that were with him that night and there during that feast that night, here is the finish of that testimonial revelation that he said he was only going to do a quick synoptic review. That is the fulfillment. He left it for his only begotten Son, whom he raised to do it. He gave it to be to do. John. John gave it to B to do. And John is A. So now in closing, I pray this helped. I pray you wake up and come out of her, my people. In the meantime, for those who did not, here's a special message to all of those of Europe and of Israel that is responsible for leaping over some years to add an extra day to rule this world, their worlds. In Zechariah chapter 1, beginning at verse 2 to verse 9. So pay attention. Here's to you. I will utterly consume all things from off the land, saith the Lord. I will consume man and beast. I will consume the fowls of the heaven and the fishes of the sea and the stumbling blocks with the wicked. And I will cut off man from off the land, saith the Lord. Verse 4, I will also stretch out mine hand upon Judah and upon all the inhabitations and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And I will cut off the remnant of Baal from his place, and the name of the cherubims with the priests, and them that worship the host of heaven upon the housetops. And verse 5, and them that worship and that swear by the Lord, and that swear by Malcolm. Verse 6, and them that are turned back from the Lord, and those that have not sought the Lord, nor inquire for him. Verse 7, hold thy peace at thy presence of the Lord God, for the day of the Lord is at hand. H-A-N-D, hand. For the Lord has prepared a sacrifice. In verse 7, he hath bid his guests. Verse 8, and he shall come to pass, and it shall come to pass in that day of the Lord's sacrifice, that I will punish the princes and the king's children, and all such are clothed with strange apparel, even those wearing white, and those wearing western wear. And verse 9, finally, in that same day also will I punish all those that leap, L-E-A-P, leap, the threshold, which fill their master's house with violence and deceit, which also lies, end quote. So in closing, I say, if you care to write to us or you have any comments and you want to reach out, well, our post office box today is for all comments and letters. And you can address it to, and I quote, the Celestial Lodge of Miami. The Celestial Lodge of Miami, spelled with an S. The Celestial, Celestial, Celestial Lodge of Miami. P.O. Box 472072. Again, that's Post Office Box 472072, Miami of Florida 33247. With that, I say, Toda, thank you for your attention of this very important announcement and your attendance during the Sabbath day revelation of observance, and from timekeeping, from the timekeeper himself, Shiloh, Reverend Genesis chapter 49, verse 10. Shalom, shalom, stay safe, or try swimming. Dam is going to break. Praise Yahweh.